I've always thought of myself as a pretty logical person. I don't scare easily. Horror movies don't faze me, and I've never believed in ghosts or the supernatural. But what happened to me recently has changed the way I think about fear and about my own home. It started off with little things. A mug would go missing from the kitchen, or I'd find the bathroom light on when I was sure I'd turned it off. I figured I was just being forgetful. I live alone in an old house, so it's easy to blame creaky floors and drafty windows for any weird noises or misplaced items. But then, the noises started getting more frequent and harder to ignore. At night, I'd hear what sounded like faint footsteps above my bedroom ceiling. Sometimes I'd catch a whiff of something odd, like stale food, but I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. I told myself it was probably mice in the attic, or maybe the house settling. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. After a few nights of restless sleep, I decided to check the attic. I grabbed a flashlight and climbed up, expecting to find maybe a squirrel's nest or some old insulation. But the attic was empty, at least as far as I could tell. No animals, no obvious signs of anything unusual. I felt a little silly for even worrying, but the feeling of being watched just wouldn't go away. It was like a constant itch at the back of my neck. So I did what any paranoid person would do. I bought a cheap motion sensor camera and set it up in the hallway outside my bedroom, pointing toward the attic hatch. I figured if there was anything weird going on, I'd catch it on camera and finally put my mind at ease. The next morning, I checked the footage, expecting to see nothing but empty hallway. But as I scrubbed through the video, my heart started pounding. Sometime around 2 a.m., the attic hatch slowly opened. A man, thin, dirty, and barefoot, lowered himself down into my hallway. He paused, listening, then crept into the kitchen. He moved with the confidence of someone who'd done this before. I froze. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Someone had been living in my attic, coming down at night, moving around my house while I slept just a few feet away. I called the police immediately, barely able to get the words out. When they arrived, they searched the attic again. This time, they found a makeshift bed, piles of food wrappers, a flashlight, and a notebook filled with strange scribbles. The man was gone, but the evidence was clear. He'd been up there for months, living above me, watching me, waiting for me to fall asleep before sneaking down. I still don't know how he got in, or how long he'd been watching me before I noticed. The police said it's not as uncommon as you'd think. Sometimes people looking for shelter find old houses with easy attic access and just move in. I changed all the locks, installed a full security system, and I haven't slept through the night since. Every creak, every shadow puts me on edge. I used to think my home was the safest place in the world. Now I'm not so sure. So if you ever hear strange noises at night, or feel like something isn't quite right, don't ignore it. Sometimes the scariest things aren't ghosts or monsters. Sometimes it's the things you can't see, hiding just above your head.
It was a regular Tuesday morning, and I was sitting in my high school calculus class. The room was filled with the usual quiet hum of students half listening to the teacher and half doodling in their notebooks. I remember glancing at the clock, counting down the minutes until lunch. Suddenly, the intercom crackled to life. Our principal's voice came through, but it was different this time, shaky and urgent. Principal, attention staff and students, we are now in lockdown. This is not a drill. Please follow lockdown procedures immediately. The room went silent. My teacher, Mrs. Carter, froze for a second, then quickly locked the door and turned off the lights. She motioned for us to get down and move away from the windows. We all scrambled to the corner of the room, trying to make ourselves as small as possible. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Someone whispered, "Is this real?" But nobody answered. We all knew it wasn't a drill. The school only did drills during homeroom, never in the middle of a class. For what felt like hours, we sat there in the dark, barely breathing. Every little noise in the hallway made us jump. At one point we heard footsteps, slow, heavy, and getting closer. Someone outside tried the doorknob. It rattled, but the door was locked. I remember squeezing my friend's hand so tightly my knuckles hurt. After a few minutes, the footsteps faded. But the fear didn't. We had no idea what was happening outside that door. Some kids started crying quietly. Mrs. Carter whispered that everything would be okay, but I could see the fear in her eyes too. Eventually, the intercom came back on. This time, it was a police officer's voice, calm but firm. "Police officer, the building is secure. Please remain in your classrooms until further notice." We found out later that a mentally unstable man had entered the building through a side door that someone had propped open. He hadn't hurt anyone, but he'd wandered the halls until the police arrived and took him into custody. I'll never forget the feeling of sitting in that dark classroom not knowing what was happening, not knowing if we were safe. It's something that sticks with you, a reminder that even on the most ordinary days, things can change in an instant. It happened during lunch, which was usually the loudest, most chaotic part of the school day. The cafeteria was packed, everyone talking over each other, the smell of pizza and fries hanging in the air. My friends and I had just sat down with our trays when the noise was interrupted by the sound of the intercom. It happened during lunch, which was usually the loudest, most chaotic part of the school day. The cafeteria was packed, everyone talking over each other, the smell of pizza and fries hanging in the air. My friends and I had just sat down with our trays when the noise was interrupted by the sound of the intercom. At first, nobody paid attention, but then the principal's voice came on and you could hear the tension in it. "Principal, we are now under lockdown. This is not a drill. Please follow all lockdown procedures immediately." The cafeteria went dead silent. For a second, nobody moved. Then the lunch monitors started shouting for everyone to get down and move away from the windows. People dropped their food and scrambled under the tables. Some kids tried to text their parents, but the teachers were telling us to put our phones away and stay quiet. We all huddled together, packed tight under the tables. The only thing you could hear was the sound of people breathing and the occasional stifled sob. I remember looking at my friend, his face pale, his hands shaking. None of us had any idea what was going on. After what felt like forever, we heard sirens outside. Through the small windows, I could see police cars pulling up, lights flashing. The teachers kept telling us to stay down, but it was impossible not to peek. Eventually, the principal's voice came back on, sounding a little calmer. "Principal, the situation outside the building has been contained. Please remain in lockdown until further notice." It wasn't until later that we found out what had happened. A mentally disabled man who lived across the street had barricaded himself in front of his house. He wasn't armed, but he was shouting and acting erratically, and someone had called the police. The school went into lockdown as a precaution. Even though there was never any real danger inside the school, those minutes under the lunch tables felt like hours. The fear was real, and it didn't go away just because the threat was outside. For a long time after, every time the intercom crackled, I felt my heart skip a beat. A couple of years after I graduated high school, I went back as a computer intern. It was a weird feeling, walking the same halls, but this time as staff, not a student. My job was pretty simple: fix computers, help teachers with tech problems, and mostly stay out of the way. A couple of years after I graduated high school, I went back as a computer intern. It was a weird feeling, walking the same halls, but this time as staff, not a student. My job was pretty simple: fix computers, help teachers with tech problems, and mostly stay out of the way. One afternoon, I was working alone in the IT office. It was quiet, just the hum of computers and the occasional voice echoing down the hallway. I was halfway through repairing a laptop when the school's lockdown alarm started blaring. At first I thought it was a drill, but then the principal's voice came over the intercom, shaky and urgent. "This is a lockdown. This is not a drill. Please secure your rooms and remain silent." I froze for a second, then remembered the lockdown protocol. I locked the office door, turned off the lights, and ducked behind a desk. My heart was pounding. Even as a staff member, I felt just as helpless as I did when I was a student. The hallway outside was silent. I could hear the faint sound of doors being locked, teachers whispering to their classes. Then footsteps, slow, deliberate, echoing off the linoleum. They stopped right outside the IT office. I held my breath, barely daring to move. Suddenly, someone tried the doorknob. It rattled, then stopped. I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears. Whoever it was stood there for a few seconds, then moved on. I waited, barely breathing, listening as the footsteps faded down the hall. After what felt like an eternity, the intercom came back on. This time, it was a police officer. "The threat has been neutralized. Please remain in lockdown until further instructions." It wasn't until later that I learned what had happened. A man with a gun had entered the building through a side door. Nobody knew who he was or why he was there. The police responded quickly and managed to get him into custody before anyone was hurt. Even now, I still remember the feeling of hiding behind that desk, not knowing what was happening outside the door. It didn't matter that I was staff or that I was older. In that moment, I was just as scared as any student. It's something I'll never forget. Thank you for watching, and please tell us which story you enjoyed most in the comments. I'd camped in these Appalachian woods a dozen times, but that night the air felt different, thick with damp pine and a silence so deep it pressed against my ears. No owls, no crickets, just a heavy stillness broken by a shrill, erratic whistling that seemed to move through the trees. I froze by the fire, every shadow twitching at the edge of my vision, and then I heard a voice. "Hey, over here!" That made my blood run cold. It was Marcy, my college roommate who'd vanished here 2 years ago. The police only found her boot at the bottom of a ravine. "Marcy," I whispered, my phone flashlight trembling in my hand, but the beam revealed only fog and twisted branches. Her voice called for help, first from the east, then the west, then right behind me, growing more desperate and warped with every echo. I spun and caught a glimpse of something between the pines, too tall, limbs bending wrong, lurching sideways like a broken marionette. It gurgled, "Why'd you leave me here?" In a voice that was hers and not hers. I ran, branches tearing at my arms, chased by a chorus of voices, children crying, men laughing, all mocking and wrong. The truck door stuck. I kicked it open, sobbing, as something slammed against the tailgate, snarling in a language that sounded like rocks grinding teeth. I never looked back, but sometimes, in the static between radio stations or the wind outside my window, I still hear her voice, twisted and pleading, and I wonder if Marcy was taken by that thing, or if she became it. I've hiked the old trails of the Appalachians since I was a kid, but that day, the woods felt wrong from the moment I stepped in. The mist muffled every sound, and 2 miles in, I found the first bones, small animal skulls and femurs arranged in a perfect circle in the middle of the trail, each piece placed with eerie care. The deeper I went, the more elaborate the displays became, bones strung from branches, vertebrae stacked in little towers, rib cages wedged between rocks like grotesque gates, some fresh and bloody, others bleached by time. Symbols I couldn't recognize were carved into tree trunks and dirt, filling me with a dread I couldn't explain. The air grew colder, heavy with the sense of being watched, and when I tried to turn back, the trail seemed to twist and close behind me. Then I heard it, a guttural croak, almost human, and caught a glimpse of something tall and thin slipping behind a tree, limbs too long and movements jerky like a puppet. The bone arrangements grew more sinister, culminating in a deer skull placed dead center on the path, its empty sockets staring up at me. The smell of rot and copper filled the air as footsteps matched my own, and the croaking voice began to mimic me, pleading and mocking at the same time. I ran, branches whipping my face, the thing's voice now right at my ear, until I burst into the clearing and my waiting car. I haven't been back since, but sometimes I dream of those bones and that thing in the woods, waiting for someone else to wander too far off the path. I've worked as a ranger in the Appalachian backcountry for over a decade, but nothing prepared me for the winter night a missing child drew me deep into the woods. The forest was deathly quiet, snow muffling my steps as I found a bloodied mitten snagged on a bush and called out, "Eli! Eli, can you hear me?" And a faint, trembling voice answered, but something about it was off. Too flat, too steady, like a recording. Following the tracks, I found Eli huddled beneath a fallen pine, his face streaked with tears and mud, whispering, "Don't listen to it. It's not me." Before I could ask, I heard his voice echoing through the trees from all directions, pleading for help, growing closer. A shape moved just beyond my flashlight's reach, tall, impossibly thin, skin gray and shimmering, limbs bending at impossible angles, its face a grotesque mask stretched into a parody of a child's features. It called out again, now in my own voice, perfectly mimicking my fear. The air stank of rot and metal, and my radio was nothing but static as the thing circled, testing us with every voice it stole. We stayed pressed together until the first pale light of dawn, when the creature melted away into the shadows, its mimicry fading to a guttural hiss. I carried Eli out and never looked back. He never spoke of that night again, and I never answer voices calling my name from the darkness. Some things in these mountains are older than memory, and they're always hungry for another story to wear.
I never used to remember my dreams, but a few months ago I started practicing lucid dreaming. I thought it would be fun, flying, exploring, maybe meeting some strange dream characters. I had no idea what I was really unlocking. The first time I realized I was dreaming, I was standing in a dark hallway. I remembered the advice, "Look at your hands, they were blurry, shifting." I smiled, realizing I could do anything. So I ran faster and faster until the walls melted away and I was flying over a city made of glass. But then the nightmares started. The first was a shadowy creature with too many eyes chasing me through endless corridors. I remembered I could control the dream, so I imagined a door, opened it and stepped through, leaving the monster behind. The next day I saw a news story. A woman in my city had a psychotic break, claiming she was being chased by a monster with too many eyes. I brushed it off as coincidence. But it kept happening. Every nightmare I escaped, every horror I left behind, seemed to find someone else. I started keeping a dream journal, matching the details to news stories and social media posts. The connections were undeniable. I tried to stop lucid dreaming. I tried sleeping less, drinking coffee, anything to keep the dreams away. But the nightmares found me even when I was awake. Shadows flickered in the corners of my vision. I heard whispers in empty rooms. Last night, I dreamed I was in a room full of mirrors. My reflection whispered, "You're not escaping, you're just passing it on." I woke up screaming, drenched in sweat. Now I'm afraid to sleep, I'm afraid to dream, because every time I escape someone else pays the price and I can't stop dreaming. I've always loved lucid dreaming, the thrill of realizing I'm in a dream, the power to shape reality. It's addictive. But lately something's been wrong. It started a few weeks ago. I became lucid in a dream, standing in my childhood home. I looked into a mirror expecting to see my own face, but instead, I saw something else. A shadowy figure, its features blurred, standing exactly where I was. I laughed it off, thinking it was just my imagination. But every night the figure returned, sometimes in mirrors, sometimes in windows, always watching. When I moved, it moved. When I spoke, its mouth twisted into a silent scream. One night, I decided to confront it. I turned my back on the mirror, then spun around suddenly. The figure was closer, its hand pressed against the glass. My heart pounded. I tried to wake up but couldn't. The next morning, I noticed something strange. My reflection in the bathroom mirror seemed off. Just for a second I thought I saw the shadowy figure lurking behind my eyes. Now, every time I dream, the figure gets closer. It's not just in mirrors anymore. I see it in the corner of my dreams, always watching, always waiting. Sometimes I feel its cold breath on my neck. Last night I woke up to find my bedroom mirror fogged up, as if someone or something had been breathing on it from the inside. I'm terrified. What if one night the figure steps out of the mirror? What if it's already here? I never thought much about my dreams until I met the dream dealer. It started with a flyer at my local coffee shop. Control your dreams, live your fantasies, ask for the dream dealer. I was curious, so I called the number. We met in a dimly lit cafe. The dream dealer was a pale, sharp-eyed woman who spoke in riddles. She offered me a deal: total control over my dreams in exchange for a single memory. You won't miss it, she promised. That night I dreamed I was flying over oceans, breathing underwater, walking through fire. Every night I could do anything. It was exhilarating. But then, I started forgetting things. At first it was little things, where I put my keys, what I had for breakfast, then, bigger things. My best friend's birthday, the name of my first pet. Each time I woke, I felt emptier. I went back to the cafe, but the dream dealer was gone. The staff swore they'd never seen her. I tried to stop dreaming, but I couldn't. Every night I slipped deeper into the dream world, and every morning I lost another piece of myself. Now, I'm not sure what's real. Sometimes I wake up and the world feels wrong. People I should know are strangers. Places I've never been feel familiar. Last night the dream dealer appeared in my dream. She smiled and whispered, "You're almost free." But I don't know if she means free from the dreams, or from my own life. If you see the dream dealer, don't make a deal. No dream is worth losing yourself.
I never believed in ghosts or anything supernatural, really. I always thought that if something went bump in the night, there was a logical explanation. Maybe the house settling or the wind rattling the windows. But after what happened last week, I'm not so sure anymore. It started on a Wednesday night. I was home alone, my roommate was out of town for work, and I was enjoying the rare silence. My dog Max was curled up at my feet as I watched TV in the living room. The night was cold and clear, the kind where the moonlight makes everything look a little bit off. Around midnight, Max suddenly jumped up, barking furiously at the front door. He's a good guard dog, but he rarely gets spooked unless there's a reason. I muted the TV and listened. The street outside was silent. I got up and peered through the peephole, but there was nothing there. No cars, no people, just the empty street bathed in moonlight. Probably just a raccoon, I muttered, trying to calm both Max and myself. I locked the door, double-checked the deadbolt, and went back to the couch. Max, however, wouldn't settle. He kept glancing nervously at the hallway that led to the bedrooms and the staircase to the attic. That's when I heard it. A soft thump like something heavy dropping onto the floor upstairs. My heart skipped a beat. Maybe something fell over? I tried to convince myself it was nothing, but Max was visibly shaking now, ears pinned back, eyes locked on the darkened staircase. I grabbed a flashlight and quietly walked down the hallway. Every step felt heavy, the silence pressing in on me. I checked the kitchen, the bathroom, even the closet. Nothing out of place. When I reached the guest room, I noticed something strange. The window was wide open, curtains fluttering in the cold breeze. I crossed the room to close the window, glancing outside. The yard was empty. I pulled the window shut and turned to leave, but as I reached for the doorknob, the door slammed shut behind me with a force that rattled the walls. I tried the handle. It wouldn't budge. My phone buzzed, startling me. It was a notification from my home security app. I opened it and my blood ran cold. The camera feed showed a blurry figure standing outside the guest room window, staring up at me. The image glitched and flickered, and then the figure was gone. Suddenly, I heard footsteps above me. Slow, deliberate steps moving across the attic floor. I held my breath, listening as they grew louder, moving toward the attic stairs that led down to the hallway. I remembered, with a sick feeling, that I was home alone. Max whimpered from somewhere downstairs. The footsteps descended the attic stairs, each creak echoing through the silent house. I pressed myself against the locked door, heart pounding so hard I thought it might burst. The footsteps stopped right outside the guest room. The doorknob rattled, slowly turning. I braced myself, but when the door creaked open, there was no one there, just the empty hallway bathed in the cold glow of the nightlight. I stepped out, shaking. As I looked down the stairs, I saw muddy footprints leading from the attic, stopping right behind where I stood. The lights flickered and the air turned icy. I felt a cold breath on my neck and heard footsteps echoing in the darkness behind me. I ran. I don't remember how I made it out of the house, but I didn't stop until I was standing in the middle of the street, Max barking at my side. I called the police, but when they searched the house, they found nothing. No footprints, no signs of forced entry. Nothing on the cameras except static. I haven't slept in my house since. Sometimes, late at night, I still get notifications from the security app. Motion detected in the attic or the guest room window opening on its own. I don't know what came into my house that night, but I know it's still there, waiting. If you ever hear footsteps in your attic when you're sure you're alone, don't go looking. Some things are better left unseen.
Moving to Crestwood felt like stepping into a nightmare. It was a town shrouded in mist and secrets, its inhabitants always watching with suspicious eyes. I was 17, alone, and already missing our old house. My parents, ever distant and cold, seemed unfazed by the transition. They never cared much for making friends or building connections. My room was at the back of the house, overlooking a tangle of dark woods. I spent most of my time there, headphones in, trying to drown out the silence that echoed in the empty house. One afternoon there was a tap on my window. I jumped, my heart pounding. A boy with messy brown hair and bright, curious eyes stood outside. "Hey," he grinned, "you're Ryan, right? I'm Noah, live next door." He pointed to the house hidden behind a curtain of trees. "Welcome to the creepiest town on earth." His smile was infectious, and for the first time since we moved, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe Crestwood wouldn't be so bad after all. Maybe I could find a friend in this eerie town. Noah was a tech whiz, always hunched over his computer, fingers flying across the keyboard. He spoke in codes I didn't understand, his room filled with the glow of multiple monitors displaying complicated lines of numbers and symbols. He was obsessed with the dark web, fascinated by the secrets hidden in its darkest corners. "It's like another world down there," he'd say, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "A world without rules where anything goes." I listened, a shiver running down my spine. I wasn't sure I liked the sound of that. He showed me forums with strange usernames and even stranger conversations. He showed me marketplaces where people bought and sold things that made my stomach turn. I didn't understand his fascination with this hidden world. It seemed dangerous, like a place where you could lose yourself and never find your way back. But Noah was fearless, diving headfirst into the digital abyss. He was convinced he could find anything on the dark web. Any information, any secret, anything you could ever want to know. And for a while, I believed him. It started with a text. "They know," it read. "They're on to me." It was from Noah, sent just after midnight. I stared at the message, my heart starting to race. It wasn't like him to joke about this kind of thing. More texts followed, each one more frantic than the last. "They're everywhere," one read. "I can't escape." Then, silence. I tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. A knot of dread tightened in my stomach. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. I raced next door, pounding on the front door until Noah's dad, a weary-looking man with tired eyes, answered. He hadn't seen Noah since the previous evening. Fear turned to panic. I told him about the texts, the desperation in Noah's words. The police arrived soon after, their faces grim. They searched Noah's room, their expressions growing more serious with every passing minute. They asked me about Noah, about his interests, about the dark web. The police questioned me for hours. They wanted to know everything about Noah, about his life, his friends, his online activity. I told them what I knew, but it felt like it wasn't enough. They searched Noah's room, taking his computer and other electronics into evidence. After they left, I snuck back into Noah's room. His computer was gone, but his desk was still cluttered with papers. I picked up a sheet covered in scribbled notes and diagrams. It was a map of sorts, with lines connecting different points on a network. I recognized the symbols. They were the same ones Noah used to describe the dark web. At the center of the map was a name. My name. My heart skipped a beat. What did Noah find that involved me? I had to find out. I had to know what happened to Noah and what it had to do with me. I knew it was dangerous, but I had to go where Noah went, into the depths of the dark web. The air was thick with the stench of fear and sweat. My hands trembled as I typed my last name into the search bar. The screen flickered, and a list of results appeared. My stomach churned. The titles were chilling, each one more disturbing than the last. Clicking on a video link, I was met with a scene that sent a wave of nausea through me. Two figures, their faces obscured by masks, were dragging a struggling victim into a dimly lit basement. The victim's screams were muffled, their pleas for mercy ignored. Then the masked figures turned towards the camera. They removed their masks, and my blood ran cold. The faces staring back at me were my parents. My heart pounded in my chest. The videos showed them torturing and murdering people. Their victims were strangers, business associates, and then, Noah. The world spun as the weight of the truth crashed down on me. My parents were monsters. They had taken Noah, and they were responsible for the horrors I had witnessed. I was a breath away from complete despair, the horrifying truth a lead weight in my gut. What was I supposed to do? Could I even escape the reach of my parents? I was trapped in a nightmare, and there was no waking up.
I've been on the force for nearly 15 years. I've seen things most people wouldn't believe. Crash scenes, homicides, domestic violence. But there's one call that still keeps me up at night. I've been on the force for nearly 15 years. I've seen things most people wouldn't believe. Crash scenes, homicides, domestic violence. But there's one call that still keeps me up at night. I got the dispatch just after midnight. A single mother reported someone was inside her house. Normally we'd send a unit or two and clear it quick, but this time felt different. The 911 operator told me the woman was hysterical. She wasn't hearing things, she was getting texts. From her son's number. Her son, who was supposed to be at his dad's place, 2 hours away. When I pulled up to the house, the street was quiet. No signs of forced entry. The front door was locked. No smashed windows. But the mom, Danielle, was standing in the driveway barefoot, clutching her phone, shaking uncontrollably. She handed it to me and said, "He's in there." Using my son's phone, I scrolled through the texts. They started off simple. "Mom, I'm back early. Forgot my keys. Let me in." She responded, "You're not supposed to be home till Sunday. Are you messing with me?" Then the tone shifted. "I see you. Why do you lock the basement door every night? I like the way you look when you sleep." She told me she hadn't opened the basement in weeks. Her son hated that place. Claimed it smelled weird. Said he always heard dripping down there, even when the pipes were dry. I called for backup, but I didn't wait. Something felt off. I had to go in. Danielle stayed outside with my partner. I entered through the garage and cleared the main floor. Nothing. The living room was empty. The kitchen was clean. A plate of half-eaten food still sat on the table. It was still warm, but Danielle swore she hadn't cooked anything since lunch. Then I heard it. A phone vibrating. Not mine, not hers. It was coming from upstairs. I moved slowly. Her son's room was at the end of the hall. I opened the door. The bed was neatly made. Closet door half open. That's when I saw it. A phone on the windowsill, still buzzing. I picked it up. It was her son's. But the last message wasn't to her. It was to a number with no name, just a string of digits. She's starting to freak out. What do I do next? Then the closet creaked. I raised my weapon and called out, "Police! Step out now!" No answer. I opened it. Empty. But carved into the back wall, small, almost like a child had done it, was the word waiting. Something wasn't right. The air felt heavy, like the room was holding its breath. I made my way to the basement. Danielle said it was locked. It wasn't anymore. The door was wide open, the light on. I radioed in. Basement doors open. Proceeding down. My partner responded, "Copy. We've got your 6." I descended slowly. The stairs creaked like they hadn't been touched in years. At the bottom I found shelves, boxes, some old toys, water damage on the floor, a bare bulb swinging above me. In the corner I found a blanket, a mattress, a juice box. Someone had been living down here. Behind the furnace I found something worse. A stack of printed photos, some old, some recent, all of Danielle, cooking, watching TV, sleeping, all taken from inside the house. There was a phone too, burnt on one side, like someone had tried to destroy it. But one message was still visible. "I want to be part of the family now." Just then I heard movement upstairs. A crash. Then a scream. My partner yelled, "Suspect fleeing out the back." We chased him through the backyard. He jumped 2 fences, bleeding from the hand. We lost him in the greenbelt. We never caught him. Just then I heard movement upstairs. A crash. Then a scream. My partner yelled, "Suspect fleeing out the back." We chased him through the backyard. He jumped 2 fences, bleeding from the hand. We lost him in the greenbelt. We never caught him. A week later, Danielle called the station. A package had arrived, no return address. Inside was a thumb drive. When tech opened it, there were dozens of audio files. Breathing, scratching, footsteps, and in one clip, a man whispering, "Tell the officer I said thank you for not checking under the stairs." I went back to the house, looked again. We'd cleared everything. But when I pulled off the baseboards beneath the stairs, I found a false panel. Behind it, a crawl space. Big enough for someone to hide in. Big enough for someone to watch. Danielle and her son moved out of state. We sealed the basement. But every now and then, I still wonder, what would have happened if she hadn't called when she did? Or worse, what if she had?
In the early days of the internet, a mystery emerged that would blur the line between science fiction and reality, a story that continues to captivate and confound. This is the saga of John Titor, the alleged time traveler whose warnings and technical revelations have become one of the digital age's most enduring enigmas. On a quiet November day in 2000, a user calling himself timetravel_0 appeared on online forums. He claimed to be a soldier from the year 2036, sent back on a mission to retrieve a device critical to his future, the IBM 5100 computer. This machine, introduced in the mid-1970s, was a marvel of its time, combining a 16-bit processor, integrated CRT monitor, and the power to emulate larger systems in a suitcase-sized package. But Titor claimed it held a secret, one not publicly known for decades. The 5100 could read and modify legacy IBM code, a capability hidden from the public to protect IBM's business interests. According to Titor, this unique feature was essential for debugging legacy systems in his world, where a global computer crisis threatened to cripple society. Titor's story didn't stop at technical details. He described an America torn by civil war, leading to a fractured survivalist society. He warned of a nuclear conflict with Russia and urged readers to prepare for upheaval. He posted detailed descriptions of his time machine, which supposedly used dual microsingularities, miniature black holes, to manipulate gravity and traverse alternate timelines. The diagrams and scientific jargon he shared sparked heated debates among both physicists and internet sleuths, many of whom tried to pick apart his claims or prove them plausible. Skeptics quickly pointed out inconsistencies and failed predictions, but Titor anticipated this, claiming that each journey created a new worldline, so outcomes would inevitably differ. Some technical experts were intrigued by his knowledge of the IBM 5100's obscure features, which were later confirmed by engineers but not widely known at the time. This lent a degree of credibility to his claims, even as the rest of his story strained belief. The forums where he posted became battlegrounds for believers and doubters, each trying to unravel the truth behind the mysterious traveler. Investigations have suggested possible hoaxers behind the Titor persona, but no definitive proof has surfaced. The IBM 5100 itself remains a testament to early computer innovation, its hidden capabilities now part of computing lore. Meanwhile, the legend of John Titor has inspired books, documentaries, and countless online discussions, each new generation discovering the story and wondering if there might be a grain of truth beneath the myth. Decades later, John Titor's tale endures, not because it was proven, but because it asks us to question the boundaries of truth, technology, and time. In a world still facing technological uncertainty and social upheaval, his warnings feel strangely relevant. Was he a prophet, a hoaxer, or simply a mirror for our anxieties about the future? The mystery remains unsolved, echoing through the digital corridors where it began. If this is your first time hearing the story of John Titor, smash the like and subscribe. That helps us tremendously. Let us know what you think in the comments below. Do you believe time travel is possible? And if you enjoyed this deep dive, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more fascinating mysteries from the edge of science and history.
6 friends, bored and restless, decided to delve into the hidden corners of the internet. The dark web they'd heard whispers of, a place of secrets and shadows. "It's just stories, Mark," the bold one declared. "Let's see for ourselves." Late one night, huddled in Emily's basement, they took the plunge. The screen flickered, the air grew heavy. A sense of unease settled over them as they navigated through layers of encrypted websites. They found forums with cryptic messages, marketplaces peddling forbidden goods. The deeper they went, the more unsettling it became. A cold dread crept up their spines. They were in over their heads, but curiosity held them captive. "Guys, I don't like this," whispered Sarah, her voice trembling. They ignored her, their eyes glued to the screen. They stumbled upon a sight unlike any other, a black page with a single, pulsating red symbol. Intrigued and terrified, they clicked. The room went silent. The only sound was their own quickening breaths. The next day, things began to change. Strange occurrences plagued each of them, subtle at first. Sarah found a single withered black rose on her pillow. John's phone displayed distorted images, faces twisted into grotesque smiles. Emily's reflection in the mirror no longer met her gaze. Fear, like a virus, began to spread among them. Mark, ever the skeptic, dismissed it as coincidence. "We're letting our imaginations run wild," he scoffed. But deep down, even he couldn't shake off the feeling of being watched, hunted. Their laughter died down, replaced by nervous glances and hushed whispers. The darkness they had sought was seeping into their lives, tainting their reality. Their dreams became haunted by shadowy figures and whispers of their names. Sleep offered no escape, only deeper descent into terror. They were trapped, both in their waking nightmare and the web they had entangled themselves in. The red symbol, seared into their minds, became a haunting reminder of their folly. Days turned into a blur of paranoia and dread. The friends, once inseparable, now avoided each other's eyes, each haunted by their own personal horrors. They tried to retrace their steps to find the mysterious website again, but it was gone, vanished into the depths of the dark web. One evening, as they finally decided to go to the police, the lights went out. Darkness enveloped the room, thick and heavy. A cold wind swept through the basement, carrying with it a low, guttural growl. Panic seized them. They huddled together, their fear a tangible presence in the suffocating darkness. Then silence. The lights flickered back on. They looked around, their hearts pounding in their chests. In the center of the room, where moments ago there was nothing, stood a single black candle. It was lit. Its flame burned an unnatural shade of red, casting dancing shadows on the walls. The air hung heavy with the scent of sulfur and decay. One by one they started to disappear. John vanished first, leaving behind only his phone, which displayed the red symbol, now pulsating ominously. Then Emily, her room left in disarray as if a struggle had taken place. The remaining friends were paralyzed by fear, their nightmares bleeding into their waking hours. Mark, his bravado gone, finally admitted his terror. "We've unleashed something," he whispered, his voice hoarse. They tried to contact the authorities, but their pleas were met with skepticism and disbelief. They were alone, hunted by an unseen entity, their every move shadowed by an escalating sense of dread. The disappearances continued. Sarah, then Chris. Each vanishing act was preceded by the flickering of the lights and the scent of sulfur. Only Mark and Jessica remained, their friendship stretched thin by fear and despair. They knew their time was running out, that they were next. Driven to the edge, Mark and Jessica decided to confront their tormentor. Armed with nothing but their desperation, they performed a ritual they found on the dark web, a desperate attempt to sever the connection they had made. The candle flickered violently, casting grotesque shadows on the walls. A cold wind whipped around them and the room filled with the sound of whispers and unseen creatures. Then, silence. The candle sputtered and died. The air grew still. Had they succeeded? Relief washed over them, followed by an overwhelming sense of exhaustion. As they embraced, Jessica looked at Mark, her eyes wide with horror. "Mark," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Your reflection." He turned to the mirror, his blood running cold. His reflection remained, but it wasn't him. It was a grotesque mockery, his features twisted into a terrifying grimace, his eyes glowing with an eerie red light. The reflection smiled, a slow, chilling smile that spread across its face like a crack in a porcelain mask. The red symbol pulsed on his forehead, a brand of their doom. They were not free. They were never going to be free. The entity from the dark web was now one of them,